So, you know how the entire world has been obsessed with bigger, faster, more powerful digital GPUs? Well, what if I told you a breakthrough just emerged from China that doesn't just improve on that? It completely leapfrogs it. We're talking about a totally new kind of AI chip based on a forgotten science that just rewrote the entire rulebook for computing power. Okay, but to really get how we got here, we have to start with a pretty stunning prediction. It was made just a few weeks ago from the one person you would never ever expect to hear it from.
Yeah, you heard that right. The man who built a $5 trillion empire on GPUs, the undisputed king of AI hardware, just went on record saying his company's entire technology might be on the losing side. Think about that. He didn't say China might win. He said they are going to win. That one statement sent absolute shockwaves through Silicon Valley.
And that right there is the central mystery, isn't it? For years now, the whole strategy from the US has been to tighten the screws, right? Cut off China's access to the best chips, to starve their AI development. So, how could they possibly be on the verge of winning? Well, the answer lies down a path that computing gave up on and left for dead almost a century ago. To really wrap our heads around what's going on, we need to take a quick look at the fundamental design of pretty much every computer we use today, and the failed experiment that just came back from the dead to change everything. So here's the deal. Modern computers, the ones in your phone, your laptop, everywhere, they're all digital. They think in ones and zeros. It's super precise, sure, but it creates this massive traffic jam called the von Neumann bottleneck. Data is constantly being shuttled back and forth between the processor and the memory, and it wastes a ridiculous amount of time and energy. Now, way back when, there was another idea: analog computing. It used continuous signals, kind of like how the real world works. It was way more efficient, but it had a fatal flaw. It was messy. The signals would drift, they'd pick up noise, and the calculations would become totally unreliable. So for 100 years, everyone just assumed analog was a dead end. Well, until now. Okay, and this is where the story just takes a wild turn. Researchers didn't just figure out a way to fix analog's old fatal flaw, they actually turned it into a strength. And in the process, they achieved a level of precision that most people thought was physically impossible. So on October 13th, 2025, a paper gets published in Nature Electronics from a team at Peking University, and it just lands like a bomb in the scientific community. It described a new kind of analog chip that wasn't just a small step forward. No, this was a complete reinvention of how we even think about computing. The core idea is something called in-memory computing. Okay, to put it simply, imagine if your refrigerator and your stove were the same exact appliance. You just put the raw ingredients in and it comes out as a cooked meal without ever having to move anything between the two. That is exactly what this chip does. It processes the data right where it's stored, which completely gets rid of that energy-sucking von Neumann bottleneck. So how on earth did they pull this off? They used something called resistive RAM, or RRAM. Now, instead of a simple on or off light switch for data, a 1 or a 0, each memory cell works more like a dimmer switch. It can hold hundreds of different levels of electrical resistance, so when a current flows through, the chip performs these massive parallel calculations all at once, right there, in place. And the result? It's an accuracy level that is 5 orders of magnitude, that's 100,000 times, more precise than any analog computer ever built in history. It's just staggering. And look, this is not just some science experiment stuck in a lab. This breakthrough leads to absolutely insane real-world performance gains that could literally change the entire AI landscape overnight. When they tested it on matrix equation solving, which is the basic math behind all AI training, this new chip showed a throughput that was 1,000 times higher than NVIDIA's top-of-the-line H100 GPU. And just when you think that's crazy enough, it also did it with 100 times better energy efficiency. So it's not just insanely faster, it basically sips power, while a normal GPU just guzzles it. I mean, just look at this comparison. It really lays it all out. We are talking about 1,000 times the throughput and 100 times the efficiency, all while getting an accuracy that's on par with high-end 24-bit digital systems. And here's the kicker. This isn't some exotic research project. It was built using existing commercial manufacturing processes. That means it can be mass-produced, like, right now. So you're probably asking, wait a minute, how did this happen under the sanctions? Well, it turns out the sanctions completely backfired, big time. By cutting off China's access to Western GPUs, the US accidentally forced their researchers to stop trying to just copy the West, and instead to innovate their way around the problem. They didn't build a better GPU. They just abandoned that path entirely and built something brand new. So what does this actually mean? What can you do with a chip this powerful? Well, you can run the insane calculations you need for 6G networks in real time. You could train the next GPT-level AI models in just a few days instead of many months and use a tiny fraction of the electricity. And because it's so incredibly efficient, you can put truly powerful AI right onto devices like phones, cars, and drones, with no need for a cloud connection at all. But here's the thing. The real story, the one that nobody's really talking about, goes way deeper than just raw speed. You see, the global AI race has quietly become a race for energy. And this is where China has a hidden and now maybe a decisive advantage. Right now, in the US, you've got AI data centers that are straining power grids and facing skyrocketing electricity costs. But over in China, the government is pouring money into subsidizing power for its tech companies, sometimes cutting their energy bills by as much as 50%. That was already a huge leg up. Okay, now, take that massive cost advantage they already have and combine it with a new chip that is 100 times more power efficient. All of a sudden, China's ability to train massive AI models becomes exponentially cheaper and more scalable than anywhere else on the planet. This is the exact devastating scenario that Jensen Huang was warning everyone about. So what we're really seeing here isn't just a new piece of hardware. It's the start of something much bigger, a great divergence in how we think about technology, two completely different paths into the future of computing. You've got the West, right? Led by giants like NVIDIA, and they're basically focused on optimizing yesterday's technology, just trying to cram more transistors onto bigger GPUs that eat up more and more power. But China, because they were forced to by sanctions, is now inventing tomorrow's tech. They're going after these radical new ideas like analog computing that completely sidestep the whole Western supply chain. And that is the absolute killer point right there. This new analog chip doesn't need the most advanced 3-nanometer manufacturing from TSMC. It doesn't need those cutting-edge EUV machines from ASML, the very choke points the sanctions were designed to protect. It can be built on older, more widely available technology. They didn't just find a way around the rules of the tech race. They completely rewrote the rulebook. Which leaves all of us with a pretty terrifying question, doesn't it? It feels like the West is pouring all of its energy into perfecting the world's most advanced typewriter, while somewhere else, a totally new way to compute has just been invented. The most dangerous place to be is not even realizing you're in a race. So, how can Silicon Valley possibly catch up to a game it doesn't even know it's playing?